I'm Amanda Knox, and you're listening to Hard Knocks. Welcome to yet another Ask Amanda Anything, where you can ask me anything and then I will respond. And today, I don't know if you can tell, I almost have lost my voice because of child diseases, I guess.
Yeah, yes. But the show must go on.
But the show must go on. So be prepared for some funny sounding answers to your questions. It sounds like I'm just going through puberty and I'm a boy.
Like that Simpsons guy who works in the fast food joint.
Yeah.
I'll take your order.
I'll take your order.
Yeah. All right. As always, I'm Chris. If you don't remember me, I'm going to be poking, prodding, and playfully challenging Amanda to draw out her best answers.
Everyone's like, wait, who's this guy? Who's this guy asking her questions?
Okay. Diving in. This comes to us from Hugo via Substack.
Okay.
During the filming of The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox on Hulu, was there a moment in the acting or the writing that genuinely surprised you in a good way but still felt true to your story? Or were you hands-on throughout to make sure it stayed authentic?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I was very hands-on throughout. I was, working with the writers and reading scripts. And so that was all, and obviously all of it was based off of either stuff that I've written or stuff that I've told them or stuff that they've read about other people. Trying to think if there was anything that surprised me. I mean, I will say, and again, this is just kind of off the top of my head, like the scene where that very intimate scenes between me and Raffaele, while they are not like, scripted word for exactly what happened, they feel very, very true. And I love those scenes for that reason. And Raffaele actually likes them too. He says that like those scenes really, the scenes where it's just him and me in his apartment, really feel very true to what it was like to just be the two of us back then. And I'm really grateful for that because I feel like that aspect of our shared story is one that is kind of overlooked in the broader story of the whole thing, just how like two young people were just getting to know each other and were like deeply, into each other and young, and getting that right was, it wasn't like important in the sense of setting the record straight kind of thing, but it was important in humanizing both of our characters. And I'm really grateful for how that came across.
Yeah, and I think I would add that as much as you can be, hands in the scripts and on set to try and ensure that something comes across as authentic, the final product here is the result of so many people putting their talents in, and it's just impossible to even micromanage all of that, even if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, you couldn't. And also you just have to put faith in your partners, especially the actors, right? Like, there are like choices that both Grace and Giuseppe made that were instinctual, they weren't scripted. And they
one
did
of my
such
favorites
a good job.
Is that in the pilot, in the first episode, there's that opening scene where Amanda and Raffaele, Grace and Giuseppe, are, having that quiet, intimate morning together. And then Amanda, Grace, says, I have to go. I'm going to go back to my apartment. And he's like, no, don't go, right? And then there's this little impromptu thing that Giuseppe did that we both loved, which is after she leaves, he realizes that he's going to be able to see her out the window as she walks away. And he does this little backwards, he like rolls back onto his bed and kind of sighs in a sort of like, I'm in love sort of sigh. And then he does this little backwards roll to hop up onto his feet to look out the window. And that's not something that was written in the script. That's just a thing that he physically interpreted would make sense for his character in that moment. And it was a
And it was so great.
brilliant moment. Yeah. Giuseppe did a lot of things like that. What an incredible actor, Giuseppe De Domenico. Yeah, there was another one, the prison one. Do you remember that one?
Which one?
With the phone thing that he did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Giuseppe, you see him twice on the phone in prison, and well, actually, you see a couple of times, but twice on the phone with me in prison. And on one of them, he is he's newly in the prison, and so he's like holding the phone through his shirt and not really like holding it up to his head because he's just like, oh my God, this is like horrible. And then later on you see him just like, what up?
Yeah.
Like it just is a really cool way that he's interpreted like his how over time he's become used to the space that he was in, but in those early days he was extremely uncomfortable and alienated, and all of that is just like unscripted, him interpreting how Raffaele would feel in that moment while taking a phone call. And it's just so funny and intuitive, and so yeah, he's great.
Okay, this comes to us from Mel. I would like to publish my memoir based on being accused of kidnapping my son from another country. How would you advise me to proceed in a way that doesn't negatively impact my son, who is now 17? He remembers the events and trial, but I do not want to further traumatize or impact him.
Well, I think the first step would be to talk to him about it. And if he hasn't already read it, encourage him to read it. And that would be the first step, because I think the first, I mean, you can't control how he is going to react to your story being out there in the world. Like there's no way to anticipate how your story will be received in the world, and then how other people will then respond to it, and then how he'll respond to other people responding to it. But I think the first step would be to really get on the same page about what your story is and what you're hoping to accomplish by sharing it. And then even inviting him into that process if he wants to, not necessarily like writing anything himself, but just like, get him invested in the project of sharing your story if that's what he feels, after, processing that. I do think there are ways also of sharing your story in a way that it doesn't actually specifically give away information about your son in particular. Like there are ways of telling stories anonymously in the sense that like you can change the names of people in your story, which would have to include your name as well if you're trying to protect the identities of people. But there are ways to like tell a true story while protecting the identities of the individual people that you're referring to. An example of this is, for instance, I didn't share the real names of the women that I was imprisoned with. And because they weren't sort of crucial, like you couldn't figure out who they were just by the fact that you know who I am. Like that was a way that I protected their identity. Obviously, your son's identity is derivative of your identity. So if you felt like you needed to make it anonymous to protect him, you would have to make it yourself anonymous, or change the names in the story, and you wouldn't be able to like go out there and say, this is my story. There are certain things, but it's certainly a conversation worth having. And a 17-year-old is absolutely capable of having that conversation. And I think he'd be really grateful to you for you respecting his opinion and his perspective on that whole endeavor.
I mean, was this an issue or consideration for you at all in the writing of either of your memoirs?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think, especially in my more recent memoir, where I'm talking about things that happened after prison, and so family life things, friend things, and I was very conscious of what stories I was telling and why. And I did not, share everything there was to know about like all of my intimate relationships. And and so that was that I only shared what I felt was crucial for understanding. Like, I only shared information about specific other people when it was crucial for understanding my context. And so it might have been, for instance, that I said, a friend advised me to do this. Now, if I were being full blown like memoir, I might have named that person, but I made a choice as a writer not to name who that specific friend was who gave me this piece of advice or who interacted with me in this specific way, because it wasn't crucial for the audience to know the name of that person. They just needed to know that it was a friend of mine, say, so that they understand the context. But obviously, when it pertains to your son, he's the object of, he's the reason why you went through your whole ordeal. And so I think because he's so crucial to understanding your story, it's worth inviting him into the conversation.
I think also that the framing of that question for me leaves out the potential upside here. That, yeah, it's important to figure out how to not negatively impact your son or cause further trauma. But there's also the possibility for catharsis and healing and good things coming out of this. And I think an important question to be asking yourself when you embark on a project like this is also, how might this be a positive force in your life and his life?
Yeah, agreed. Um, I think a lot of people assume that when you air your your story and your grievances in a public way, that there's just going to be negative consequences, and there's certainly there certainly can be negative consequences, but there also can be positive consequences, like a deeper feeling of connection to other people. I've found that one of the upsides to my privacy being so horrifically violated is that I no longer feel like I feel like I'm still sort of redeveloping a sense of like what is private and what is not private for me. And so maybe I'm more of an oversharer than an undersharer, because I didn't really feel like I had a choice. But one of the weird upsides of it is that a lot of people reach out to me to tell me that they really relate to even the like most humiliating aspects of my story that I choose to share. And that feeling of human connection is very positive.
You're also put in this position of the worst moments of your life and the most distorted, misperceptions of you were shared in a huge public way. And so if you then choose, when you do have control of your own storytelling, to be an undersharer and to be very protective of what you reveal about your life, then by default, you're allowing those other big public negative things to occupy a proportionally bigger space. And so I think for you, the calculus of being an oversharer is also like, here I am, warts and all, like, judge me for who I really am. And I'm going to err on the side of like just exposing myself, because at least that will counter in a bigger way the false perceptions. And so I think like when we made the decision back on Labyrinths to document our pregnancy journey in a very intimate way, and like take people in audio inside our, meetings with the OBs and into the birthing room, even like I was aware that that was I was, from my perspective on that, was sharing a big intimate portion of my life. But for you, it's more complicated because you're countering a perception that's already out there, and I think for this person, if your story is not very well known to the public, that's maybe not a concern. But it sounds like it was something that would at least have some public record of it, so maybe something to weigh. Moving on, we have a question from Stefan. Do you have any formative, for you, books on the good life, philosophy of suffering, fatalism, existentialism, apathy, imperturbability, etc.?
Interesting question, because that sounds like almost like what kind of self-help books have I resonated with, but like you can interpret that in a lot of ways. I mean, let's see. I'm just thinking about books that have had a big impact on my development, regardless of what their content is necessarily. And this is going to sound so nerdy, but like the Harry Potter series was huge for me. And, the really difficult things that Harry grapples with in terms of identity, especially, really resonated with me and helped me get through. Like, I think coming of age stories are all really interesting because, like, a young person coming into contact with a world where there's conflict and then having to form themselves in the process is always a fascinating story. And so that was the one that was closest to me while I was going through that same kind of process. And I liked it because there was so much levity in the midst of all of that like dark material. And levity has been a big part of my way of grappling with really dark realities. At the same time, I would say The Way of Zen by Alan Watts had a tremendous impact on me. It set me down the path of Zen, which has been really formulative. And what was the name of that Stoic book that we liked, Boo? What was the
Stoic
one
Challenge?
Yeah, the Stoic Challenge. That was a great book.
William
And it's
Irvin.
really quick, fast, like it's really easy read, but it has some really great practical advice for how to switch your mindset to a more stoic one, and it's very helpful.
I was thinking you might bring up Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, if you're talking about existentialism, I mean, you can go. I know you read The Stranger, I think, in prison, right?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an existentialist novel.
I don't know.
Not.
I mean, like, there's something about the idea that the Earth is going to be destroyed by a freeway coming through that takes a very absurdist lens. In the absurdist side of it, I almost feel a little bit like Beckett would have something in common with Douglas Adams in that regard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also a book that is asking questions like, what's the meaning of life? You know what I mean? And it has
right.
a very
and
absurd and silly answer to that, right? But
yeah.
But it's also a serious answer in a way, right? It's jabbing at you for thinking that there would be that's even the right question to ask,
Yeah. I agree. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is great. It was great escapist stuff for me. And you're right that it poses big questions and then offers absurd solutions. So sure.
Nonviolent Communication struck me as a book that has been formative for you.
That's true. That's for sure true. If you're talking about like a book on psychology and self-improvement kind of thing, nonviolent communication was really helpful for me in terms of reframing the way that I both talk to myself and that I talk to other people, and understanding like this, especially this idea that like we all have needs that are completely valid. And a lot of the time, the way that we are communicating or behaving is always an attempt to meet those needs. It's just oftentimes it's not a very efficient way of getting those needs met. And so learning how to recognize what the valid need is that is being communicated to you through someone's words or behavior, and learning how to respond to that in a way that isn't, punitive or something, like that's been really interesting and valuable for me. So anyone who's looking to have like a better relationships and better understandings of like how to like get at the heart of what a person is actually looking for from you or from life, that's like really, really helpful.
All right. This comes from Michael from Substack. Two-part question. I'm going to start with part two, which is your Who's Right episodes were just discussions, but whatever happened to the get a dog one? Did you actually get a dog? If not, do you still plan to?
You know what? We almost got a dog, and it was a scam.
It was a scam.
Yeah, I found what appeared to be a advertisement for a very beautiful dog, and then Chris was like, "This can't be real," and this person's just trying to get you to send them $100 as a down payment, and then never give you a dog. And you know what? It was true. It was a scam. We didn't send them the $100. We just did a reverse search on Google for that picture of a dog, or that picture of the dog, and it had been posted years prior by someone else. And so we were being scammed.
Yeah, well,
And
I kept asking them questions, and I was like, "Well, is this dog good with kids?" And they're like, "Yes, totally." And, is it good around cats? 100%. It's like every question I asked.
was, yes, just give me the money. Yeah. And they were like, yeah. So we got a little of the wind sort of blown out of our sails by that experience. And then also just life has been so busy. It's been so busy. And I think it's finally taking a toll on me. My body is
Yeah.
like, slow down. This year has been very hectic and in good ways, all the good ways. But we just haven't had a chance to slow down enough and recalibrate. So I think that's on hold.
Um, yeah, we've also been waging a battle with the cats to
Well, you view it as waging a battle with the cats. I just think the cats are being cats. But yes, we have 3 cats who are, something's not, they're not happy about something because they're pooping and peeing outside of the litter box, and we're trying to figure that out. So if
until we
anyone
solve
has
that
any
problem, I'm not adding another animal into the mix.
Yeah, I think we need to recalibrate the vibes in the house.
Yeah. Speaking of who's right, though, we just were down in Nashville and Memphis for a couple events to support the Tennessee Innocence Project. And at the book signing line, multiple people came up to me and were like, I just love those who's rights. And it's making me think we should bring who's right back. So if anyone out there is listening to this and feels like we should bring who's right back, send us a message. I want to know if you actually care. Substack,
Send us
amandaknox.com.
a message and
Yeah.
also send us a question that you want us to argue about on who's right.
Yes. There you go. Part two, whatever happened to younglings? And will we ever hear from Kylie and Brady again? And then from another person named Dave, we just welcomed our second kid and I really miss younglings. Any chance it
Oh,
comes back? So
yeah.
multiple people are also asking about younglings, which if you're unfamiliar what that is, it is a podcast that we did with some friends of ours, Kylie and Brady, who are in the UK. And it was about being young parents and raising kids. And we would kind of sometimes all four of us would get in the booth on either side across the Atlantic and talk at once. And then sometimes we'd pair off and me and Brady would talk, or Amanda and Kylie would talk, or vice versa, switch it up. And that was a lot of fun. But we haven't been doing it. And why is that?
Yeah. Well, we haven't been doing it because I believe we weren't getting enough listeners to make it viable. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I think that just from a financial and time standpoint, we couldn't we couldn't justify it. So,
Yeah, I mean, even more than that, I think it has to do with the fact that once we had a second kid, I found it almost impossible to try and record these things because our windows for scheduling with two parents with a total of three kids between us in across different time zones in the UK and Seattle. It's like the available windows to record got more and more scarce. And
yeah, but
it
then
just
we got
became,
an au pair, and so those windows of availability are now open again.
that's
But
true. Well,
I think
maybe we should
it
bring it back.
we can talk to Brady and Kylie about it.
We
But
don't have
I
enough
think
to
that,
do.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
I've got so much to do.
All right. Well, heard that you enjoy younglings. We'll consider it. Okay. Last question comes from Twitter. What is the use in living?
That's it. That's the question.
That's the question. And I
Okay,
think
that's
that,
dark. All right.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that the use of living is, I mean, to be present, like to experience things. That's what the difference between living and not living is, the ability to experience things. And and experiencing things is just this incredible miracle of existence. At least for me, like I think that I'm always really curious about what is happening, and I think staying tuned in is to what existence has to offer is makes it worth it. And then of course, there's love. Like any time that I get to express just pure unadulterated love is the epitome of experiencing things. And I get to do that a lot these days because I have young kids, and like just being the person that someone else comes to in a moment of need is such a beautiful thing to experience. So I'd say the use of living is for moments like that.
when I heard that question, I thought that it frames living in a very utilitarian way. Like even just what's the use? What's the utility of living? And it depends on your perspective there. From the genes perspective, the utility is in reproduction and making more copies of yourself. And like once you are done doing that, then your use is to help them survive long enough, right? And then your use kind of goes away at some point. But I think more importantly, there's other ways to frame living that aren't in the terms of utility, right? Which is all about doing. It's almost like saying, what do you do? And
Well,
there's
this is
also
why I talked
being,
about it in terms of experiencing things, just paying attention to stuff, like paying attention to what is happening. Like that's what it's all about, and being curious about that. Like what's happening now? What's happening now? Like that's all life is just a bunch of nows and what's happening. and you somehow get, because you're conscious, you get to witness it and experience it, and that's like so fascinating. So I would say that's what it's for.
I mean, would your answer change at all if you were, imagine that you're talking to someone who is asking this question in a kind of serious and depressive way, who would say like, well, I don't feel like I have those opportunities to love the way you're talking about, you know, is your answer the same about witnessing and curiosity, or is there anything more?
Yes, it is 100% the same. No matter what is happening to you and what opportunities are available to you, you can always be a witness of what you are experiencing. And that is always worth it. And I think that when you become curious about what is happening and what you're experiencing, that's when you suddenly realize what opportunities are available to you to do things. But like the witnessing and the experiencing comes first, and you have to approach that with a sense of curiosity.
That's interesting. So one augments or informs the other, that the more you practice witnessing and having curiosity, the more you will find usefulness, opportunities for usefulness. But if you approach it usefulness first, it's easier to run into a wall. Yeah. I like that. Well,
I'm smart. What do you want? I'm just sick right now.
yeah, this is a rare situation. It's usually I'm the one who's sick and you're the one who's healthy as a
Yeah,
ox.
I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
this is my one time to be sick this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, please, everyone, send us your questions via
I will answer them.
amandaknox.substack.com or amandaknox.com, or hit Amanda up on social media. And we'll be back next week with another one of these Ask Amanda Anythings, or maybe, who knows, a Who's Right.
Oh,
if we have
yeah.
something appropriate to argue about.
Probably Halloween.
Ooh, a Halloween Who's Right. I think we've done that before. If not,
I think we have.
Yeah.
I think we have, but
all right. Until
send
next
in your
time.
Halloween questions.
Yes, Halloween questions. Great idea. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.